erwartet den Führer.
Meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
I, as a member of Parliament, with 9 others, visited Buchenwald concentration camp. Some people believe that the reports of what happened there are exaggerated. No words could exaggerate. We saw and we know. We were able to speak freely with internees and to hear their stories. You will now see a few of the sights we saw, and much as they may shock you, do believe me when I tell you that the reality was indescribably worse than these pictures. You cannot photograph suffering, only its results. In pictures you have no smell of disease and death. Here you see no more than a fragment of the full pattern of horror. When they had died, they were either burnt in these ovens or thrown like vermin into large communal pits. General Eisenhower is now giving each victim as he dies a reverent burial. Many of the mourners are very sick men. On the day before our visit, the deaths had been reduced to 35 during the day. Several nationalities and types, many of them intellectual and highly gifted men and women, were herd in unspeakable conditions which have entirely altered their appearance. In some camps, I'm told, liberated slaves turned against their guards and attacked their quarters. In some places, German civilians have been compelled to remove the bodies from more recent pits and help give them individual burial. In other cases, it's only possible to dig large trenches in which to inter the vast number of dead found in the camps. Here again, German civilians are forced to do the digging. This is Belsen, another center of brutality, starvation, and disease. You see our troops moving in. It is these men who so strongly advocate the publication of these pictures, which show only in small part what they see in reality. Remember, there are 18 of these German concentration camps. Dead and the living dead. Once they were busy, happy, healthy, as you and I. They studied, were engineers, musicians, and doctors. With my own eyes, I saw scores of these living skeletons. Women SS guards are as brutalized as men under the totalitarian system. You will have read how they wielded the lash for Himmler. SS Hauptsturmführer Joseph Kramer. General Dempsey's senior medical officer referred to him as a typical German brute, a sadistical, heavy-featured Nazi, quite unashamed. Under interrogation, this subhuman admitted to no uneasy conscience. This is a scene that met our men when they marched in. Similar scenes met the Americans when they entered Buchenwald. The Nazis marched away 20,000 slaves as the American army drew near, shooting any who fell by the way. Evidence of atrocity does not end at Belsen and Buchenwald. The Allies will find further proof of bestiality in other graveyards of Europe's living dead. Let no one say these things were never real.
Who was Adolf Hitler? A half-century later, we ask the question again.
He was like a meteor. He struck and was there for 1,000 years, which turned out to be 10 or 12, and disappeared, taking with him the German nation, as it was known before.
Oh, God. Oh.
To me, and not only to me, he was a genius, but only of the evil. And that's what the point the Germans did not know before years he was in power.
What he said about himself very often was he was a man who came from nowhere. He was also a man who disappeared into nowhere.
One German general called Hitler a solitary creature who followed a solitary path, with only his gigantic plans for company.
I had the occasion to talk to him without any other company. And I told him we will have the opportunity to attack London when London is covered by fog, and we can fly with everything we have available, even with the Junkers 52, like we did in Warsaw. And he said, stop it, stop it. I don't want to hear this. The whole attack on England is against my opinion, against my willing. I could stop it. The English population is of such high class, and they are so similar to the Germans that I hate to fight England.
Meine Damen und Herren, ich begrüße Sie im Panzermuseum. Mein Name ist Thiel, begrüße Sie im Namen der Stadt Munster und der Panzertruppenschule der Bundeswehr. Meine Damen und Herren, das sind und waren deutsche Kanonen, von der Firma Krupp gebaut, Mitte der 30er Jahre in die Sowjets verkauft und hier im T-34 und später auch als Packkanone eingesetzt gefahren. Aber warum trafen sie so schlecht? Kein Entfernungsmesser, kein Zielfernrohr. Wenn die Sowjets den Kampf führten, schossen sie mit dem Turm-MG, schätzten die Entfernung, führten dann den Kampf mit der Waffe. Klar, man schoss erstmal mehr vorbei, als man traf. Aber wann sie trafen, 1500 Meter. Deswegen sage ich auch hier immer wieder, meine Damen und Herren, Kruppstahl, deutsche Wertarbeit. Alles andere war sowjetisch und das war nicht so gut.
Ja, gegen Holland haben wir nicht gekämpft.
Nur gegen die Russen.
Gegen die Russen,
ja. Genauer gesagt haben wir nicht gegen die Russen gekämpft, sondern gegen den Bolschewismus.
Naja,
der Russe ist ja
Mensch ist genau der gleiche wie wir.
stalinistischer Bolschewismus und haben versucht, unser Land davor zu schützen und vor allen Dingen vielleicht ganz Europa. Wenn wir den Bolschewismus nicht aufgehalten hätten, dann wäre er auch über ihr Land gekommen und vielleicht nach Frankreich und so weiter.
Ja, bis an der Kanalküste.
Ja, genau.
Der Russe. Hatten sie alles vor.
Wir hatten, weil ja wir mussten auch gegen den Amerikaner kämpfen, weil der dann gelandet ist in Frankreich und in Italien und in Afrika und so weiter, haben wir also am Schluss gegen den Russen, gegen zum Teil 12-fache Übermacht gekämpft. Und immer mit der Hoffnung, ihn noch von den Reichsgrenzen fernzuhalten. Zum Schutz unserer Bevölkerung. Er hat ja nicht die Genfer Konvention unterzeichnet und hat also vom Kriegsvölkerrecht musste er gar nicht Gebrauch machen, das hat er auch gezeigt. Und hat entsprechend unsere Bevölkerung, aufgehetzt natürlich durch die sowjetische Propaganda, die bolschewistische, massakriert und zum Teil ganz misshandelt, hauptsächlich die Frauen. Und das haben wir versucht, bis zuletzt zu verhindern. Das ist uns nicht gelungen, aber wir haben es versucht.
Deutschen Soldaten nie passiert. Vielleicht, aber streng verboten. Ich meine, die Vergewaltigung von Frauen. Aufschreiten. Das haben doch die Russen gemacht.
Haben Deutsche nicht gemacht, meinen Sie?
Deutsche nicht.
Nein, das
wer erwischt wurde, der wurde sofort erschossen.
Das hat die deutsche Wehrmacht nicht gemacht.
Das war nicht erlaubt. Also wer erwischt wurde, wurde sofort erschossen oder in die Strafkompanie gesteckt.
Es hat doch auch Unangenehmheiten gegeben zwischen der Wehrmacht und der Bevölkerung.
In Holland?
Welche denn?
In Holland?
Welche denn?
In Putten, mein Dorf, wo
ja,
ich geboren bin.
Was ist da passiert?
Da hat die Wehrmacht das ganze Dorf umriegelt und die männliche Bevölkerung zum Arbeitseinsatz ins Reich deportiert. Ja. Und von den über 600 abgeführten Männern sind nur 49 zurückgekommen.
Haben Sie da Beweise?
Ja, die Männer sind nie wiedergekommen. Mein Großonkel waren dabei, die sind dabei umgekommen.
Und das hat die Wehrmacht gemacht? Das glaube ich nicht. Die Wehrmacht hat mit diesen Arbeitseinsatz Leute zu verhaften. Das war vielleicht Polizeitruppe.
Kurz außen vor dem Dorf wurde ein Attentat auf ein deutsches Auto verübt. Und das sind zwei, aber es war nicht sicher, dass
das
da
war der
Briten daran
Auslöser.
beteiligt
Das war
waren.
der Auslöser, deshalb ist
Es hat immer eine Ursache, wenn solche Reaktionen überreagiert.
Aber das war nicht gemäß dem Kriegsrecht.
Ja.
Aber das, was die Attentäter, wo das Auto von Partisanen oder von Nicht-Kombattanten vernichtet wurde oder getötet war, das war auch nicht nach dem Kriegsrecht. Oder waren es holländische Soldaten?
Nee, es waren Widerstandskämpfer.
Sehen Sie, da haben wir schon. Partisanen, sagt man im Osten. Das
genau
war die
dasselbe.
Ursache. Die Reaktion auf dieses Vorkommen, dass ein Fahrzeug vernichtet wurde durch Partisanen.
Aber das allererste Verbrechen war doch, dass die Niederländer mit Krieg überrollt worden waren. Wir sind nicht begonnen.
Ja, das ist richtig.
Liebe Frau,
Einmarschiert,
wir haben stundenlang diskutiert.
einmarschiert
Wir kommen
ohne
nicht weiter.
zu fragen, ob wir das dürfen. Ne?
Krieg
Ob das die
ist
Wehrmacht
ein
darf,
furchtbares
erst hätte fragen müssen, dürfen wir durch Holland durch.
Vielleicht Kriegserklärung abgeben.
Ja, da hätte aber niemand gesagt, ihr könnt das. Sag, im Krieg herrschen andere Gesetze.
Today, they try to avoid self-pity and keep themselves as busy as possible, some of them in the Star and Garter workshops. Charles Hankins is one of them. He was wounded in North Africa in April 1942 as he dragged a machine gun into position.
All of a sudden, a book. You don't feel nothing. You feel your legs go up in the air. I've looked at this, and this is torn away. And I'm frightened to look round the back, really. But eventually I've looked round the back and I thought, Jesus Christ. This leg through the army gate, this foot is smashed right off, blown right off. This one is hanging on shreds. But there's no pain at all. I felt something sort of pressing on my chest here. But I looked round and I thought, well, this is it. This is the lot, you know, Charlie boy, you've had it sort of thing. So I laid on my back and I looked at the sun. I couldn't take my eyes off the sun. I don't know why, but I couldn't. I took the water bottle off, poured it over my face, poured it in my mouth, but the lips were swollen right up and all caked with sort of your tongue swollen at the same time. There's chaos going on, chaos all around me, people getting killed and all sorts of things, you know. So I've started the crawl down the hill on my own. And I thought, well, I don't know. As I've looked back, the blood's sort of pumping out the stumps of the legs, the blood's pumping out. And the trousers, everything's torn to pieces, just torn to shreds. See? So I've crawled down the bottom of the hill, and this left one was hanging on sort of a few bits of flesh or something. But that sort of practically fell off as I got down the bottom.
Do you remember when you were crawling down that hill whether you thought that you were going to die?
Oh, yes, yeah. It was a peaceful effort, really. You know, you can see blokes being shot all around you, things being blown up, but you lay there and you thought, well, this is it, because you can't go any further. You couldn't be more sort of mutilated. You're trapped there on that battlefield. And there's no hope, and it's just pot luck whether you go down or anybody else goes down, isn't it?
And do you get used to the horror of it?
I don't think you actually get used to it, no. You can't get used to bloodshed, can you? I suppose you could if, depends how you're brought up, I suppose.
But I mean, do you get used to killing people?
I think you do that because normally, I mean, a battlefield, you're firing at people. You don't actually see them when you're mutilated or when you kill them, do you? Not necessarily. You haven't got to see them, have you? They are anonymous, aren't they? The same as I was anonymous to this German who fired the mortar.
Do you think about the war now?
I try not to, no, I try not to. You can't forget it. At the same time, you don't want to remember it, really.
Have you ever felt bitter?
Oh, yes. I think the worst time, I was all right the first 10 years was pretty aggravating, you know. I used to drive down to the coast and take the 3 daughters in the car down to the seaside, that way, you know. And once you got there, you got to sit on the beach, where you see other blokes running about, you know, with the kids on their shoulders, running about playing with them. I think that didn't help, that sort of mental torment, you know. You think, Christ, I wish I could pick my kids up and everything like that.
Was it torment?
Oh, of course it was, yeah. But you had to fight that. And in fighting it, you become an aggressive sort of character in yourself. Because if you don't, you're not going to get anywhere, are you? If you're not, you won't be bothered to wear the legs. You'll be stuck in an invalid chair. I think it tends to make you more aggressive. And let's face it, I mean, most blokes who came back like me, it's no good people saying they didn't have a chip on their shoulder because they did. And they had the right to have a chip in their shirt. It's a human nature, surely. But you see, when you get wounded like that, you must, I think the majority of people realise that it must affect you mentally to some degree, you see. Now, when you come back, all right, you come back to Roehampton Hospital, so they stick a couple of tin eggs in you, you've got to be a good boy, haven't you? And you come back to a different life. Really, you just can't do that.
Do you feel then that the government have let down the people who've fought for them in 2 world wars?
Well, I don't know, you put them in a spot here, haven't you? I would say they could have done better for the war pensioners, yes. Don't you think so? They could have done better, surely. It's only in recent, the last, say, 5 years that they really sort of, or 10 years, they really sort of tried to help the war pensioners. Well, I think the average public, Mr. Public, has forgotten it all. He's pushed it to one side, out of sight, out of mind sort of thing, isn't it?
Good old M1 rifle, semi-automatic, breech-loaded. Seems a lot heavier than it did 20 years ago. My name is John Shaw. I was with the 84th Infantry Division as a buck private during World War II. I was one of these ASTP boys, 3,000 of us shipped down to the 84th Division in April before we went overseas in 1944. And we were trained hard and sent overseas in September, and we're in England for a while, and then we caught the Red Ball Express. And then before we knew it, we were right on the edge of the line, ready to go into combat. And we were, all of us, kind of wondering what things were going to be like. We could see the shells going off, we could hear them, and we were all sort of nervous, but I don't think anyone was really fully conscious and aware of what was going to happen. Geilenkirchen was about 3 miles away from where we were, and it so happened that our regiment was leading the attack, and happened to be in the first platoon of the first company, and I happened to be in the first squad of the first platoon, and so happened that I was the first scout. So I was first. And we came through a little woods and out onto a sports plot. So we shot across this clearing and into the outskirts of the town. And there was a trench there, and we walked up the trench, all of us feeling pretty happy at this point and pretty proud of ourselves for having gotten that far. And it seemed to me the whole company was strung out into one big line. And all of a sudden, a German in a window 3 blocks away opened up on our column in this trench with a machine gun. And of course, we all hit the dirt. And we just waited there for somebody to do something. Finally, a British tank lumbered up the street off to our side and fired 2 shells right into that window. And that was the end of that.
I'm Richard K. Hawkins. I was a first lieutenant with A Company 334th Infantry of the 84th Infantry Division. It was necessary for complete cooperation between various branches of the Army. And since it was necessary for the infantrymen to attack on foot, seize the ground and hold it, it was also necessary for artillery to neutralize these positions before the infantrymen jumped off. It was a wonderful show of cooperation between these different branches.
We got through Geilenkirchen and we started on the road that we thought was taking us right to Berlin. We felt great and we were pretty excited about being in the war. And after we'd gone about 500 yards up the road, the 88 started coming in. Like fools, we ran into a little woods, and all of us tried our best to dig into the ground. We used our hands that just tried to claw the dirt, trying to dig in. In the meantime, these shells were coming into the trees and bursting all around us, and our friends were being hit and were screaming for medics. This lasted, it seemed, for about half an hour. I suppose it lasted about 5 minutes.
I'm Donald Phelps. I was a sergeant in the 333rd Infantry of the 84th Division. We found that we could sneak up to pillboxes easily at night, hit and run. The biggest problem in this type of action was that the regular emplacements of the German army in the pillboxes had everything so zeroed in that all major road intersections were under constant interdicting fire.
Before our actual combat experience, we always thought that engineers were people who came along after we passed through and repaired bridges and so forth. We actually had engineer squads with each rifle platoon whose function was to place explosive charges in pillbox and braziers, and this helped a great deal in overcoming this resistance.
I'm Major General Bill Sutton, and I was a battalion commander in General Bowling's 84th Rail Splitter Division during World War II. I arrived at the rear CP of the 84th Division in Holland on the 20th of December 1944 and moved down with the division to Marsh, Belgium on the 22nd of December. To say that the situation was fluid is putting it lightly. In Marsh, Belgium, every other house was occupied by Germans, and there was firing up and down the streets. The 334th Infantry had organized positions along the front edge of the Marsh-Houghton Ridge. I can remember that the foxholes were sometimes 150 yards apart. And they'd been dug in frozen ground, sometimes with the aid of explosives. The position was considerably overextended, and various pockets of German tanks and infantry existed all up and down the line. And during the day, the Germans had infiltrated tanks and infantry into a wooded area back of the front lines and in front of the reserve elements. And they were discovered quite by accident by a small unit going up to reinforce an attack. Took the wrong road and ran into this pocket of German tanks and infantry. And they backed off and reported this. The 84th Division artillery fired on this pocket, which was pretty well defined, and they knocked out all of these tanks and killed several hundred Germans.
这工厂卖人的就是很多了，好多啊人，对吧？集中了，集中嘛，他就讲了，他说你们怎么抵抗王军，怎么一定要杀的。你们还用燃烧弹来烧，还用步枪打，开机关枪扫射，还能起到了痛。啊，有的人说，还问你怎么死？你杀人就杀人了，还能怎么死啊？还这道理的？
これはお前南京を守っとる兵隊が何万人おったか5万おったか3万おったか大きなを守ったわけ。捕虜を集めて日本軍が管理するような能力はないでしょうが。だったらそこからじゃあどうするかとなったらそういう方法しかないの違うかな。
后来哎呀，好多人就哭了。哎呀，我的爸爸妈妈，你们不走，马上送命了。我自己当时我也说的，哎呀，我怎么我这短命啊？17岁我怎么没得命啊？马上就死了。我说我爸爸妈妈还不知道，哎呀，有的也哭的，有的好像说我死了，我还不愿意给他杀的，也有中，我们看见了，有的就自己就中了枪了去的，也有跳到河里去都有。都有，就这个给我帮了就拖到那边河边去，气到痛到救哭连天。有的想痛死的，有的痛不来的嘛，就救去了。这边呢到4、5点钟来不及了，杀不了了。后来听着机关枪咕扫射死了。我们都死啊，我们就死的怕，看见日本兵来了。我们就从西睡觉到，等到过去以后呢，我们又爬的就从河里跑，到了河边。
How many thousands were mown down by guns or bayoneted, we shall probably never know. But in many cases, oil was thrown over the bodies, and they were burned. Charred bones tell the story of many of those tragedies.
つないで2人ずつつないで4列応対の10体だな10体にして様子懇願さ持ってたの。
まっちゃんにこうてうすまいよすなにおまっちゃんはまっちゃんほどがいいうすだってしまって。
夜暗い時は後ろから11巻銃で撃ったんだ。
あそこに戦時があるんでね、そして桟橋に並べてね、そして機関銃でダダダダーと戦場でやったんですよ。
とにかく2000や3000人将軍するんだろうから簡単だから、時間的にもおそらく30分ともかかんなかったんでねえかな、あれ。とにかくカモを防いだわけだ。つまりなんていうかな、こういう普通に弾が通るように銃弾を作ったわけなんだ。
あと銃器でぶっていじるのを覚えるから、それは銃でついだんだ。銃さ、金つけたやつ、銃金っつうんだ。2万の引いてをやっつけちゃったん
だ。鼻に読んでしそうな声出すからね。
召集されたんですか？
私は現役兵だから、満20歳。大抵の人はね、5、6万持ってんだけどね、私らみたいにシベリア抑留のあれはね、もう、これはそうなんだね。これは当時の写真。 まあ、大きいからね、ちょっとこれが打ちにくいかもしれないけどね。これ山東省全体が。夏目荘これだ。5年間作戦討伐というね。開けてもくれても戦争ばっかり言ってたこれ。占領した後今度はね、治安地区が必要なんですよ。つまり警備地区がね。今ので一応分かりやすくと、例えばイラクにしてもね、第一線はずっと勝っちゃったけども、その後アメリカ軍がずっと残って警備してるでしょ。それが大変なんですよ。それが5年間も繰り返すわけで、その5年間の中にはじゃあ今のイラクの人もそうだけど、無抵抗でいるわけじゃないで、いつでも反撃してくるわけでしょ。それに対してこちらまた同じようにね反撃していくし、やる殲滅作戦をやるわけでも日本軍の言うことを聞かないやつはみんなぶっ殺しゃいという考えだからね、非常に乱暴なんですよ。敵の中に囲まれてるようなもんだからね。だからそこで出かけてっちゃ年中部落は言うこと聞かないからやっつけてやれとかね、あそこには敵のその集団がいるから襲撃しろとかね、日本に言うこと聞かないね適正なやつなんだと。だからもう面倒くさいからしちゃえっていうのは多いんです。だから捕虜でもね殺さなくてもいいような捕虜をみんな殺しちゃってるのに。
どういうふうに殺していったんでしょ
まあ一番多いのは拷問だね。拷問かけたりね、拷問かけたら情報のためにかけるんですよ。バケツに10杯ぐらい水汲んできてね、顔にね、濡れタオルをかける、タオルは。で上からジャブジャブジャブ夜間で水垂らすとね、水膜ができちゃって息が吸えないんですよ。嫌でもう一気に吸おうと思ったらどうしかない。飲んだ瞬間にパッと水が切れるから息ができるね。何回も繰り返すわけよ。それは苦しいですよ。そんなの何回も崩れたのお腹を金魚のお腹じゃないけどこんなになっちゃってね。そうすると腹の上に乗っかって水吐かせろっつってね、水吐かしてね、でまたやるんですよ。5回も6回も。それやられたらみんなね、内臓がみんなこうやられちゃうんですよ、おかしなって。それで日本にはね、この若い兵隊を訓練するために少年兵教育とやるんですね。少年兵教育の材料は全部その拷問やその他によって痛めつけられた中国人を銃剣で突き刺すんですよ。最初は嫌だったね、やっぱりね。やっぱり残酷だしね、本当にこう高さに行っても帰って気持ち悪いけどね、血しぶきが飛ぶわけだからね、そういう経験はね二度ともしたくもないし、また若い人にさせたくもないしね、罪ですよ本当に。再び日本がそういった誤った道を進まないようにするのが私たちのやっぱり後半生の、余生のね、大事な仕事任務じゃないかと思うわけね。